The Charlotte Hornets lose badly to the Orlando Magic last night. We do have a potential Rookie of the Month case on our hands, though. We'll talk about it today. Locked on Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. All right, so why Doug is saying, oh boy, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see very easily. We didn't even know if we were going to try to do this, but we are, okay? We're going to try to record and try to give you the visual effect. But my camera is acting up. Got some potato cam going on. So we're still rolling with it, but Doug has a solution. If the camera continues to look poorly, and it's happened before, but never this bad, like not in a long time has it ever been this bad. So we have a solution. Doug, why don't you show the people that are watching us on YouTube your solution and explain it?
Well, it's less the the quality of the camera is bad, but it is the fact that you are a little bit out of sync. Your audio and video is out of sync, and that can be distracting for viewers. So I do have a solution, but I also will say that it is appropriate that this is happening on this episode where we are about to talk about a game where the Charlotte Hornets looked absolutely horrendous, at least for a quarter and a half, and were completely out of sync most of the game. But yes, I do have a solution. Are you ready? Drum roll, please. Here we go. There we go. Perfect. That
Look
looks
at that
great.
face. That's a little better. I don't even like that headshot. Yeah. See, the problem with me and headshots is that even if I'm trying to look professional, I'm always going to look high. That's how it is.
You can't help it. It's just how God made you. God made you look like a stoner from a 80s comedy film.
I call it resting THC face. It's been a real problem my entire life, and it's here on full effect on YouTube if you want to check us out there. So in case it gets too distracting, we'll put that picture up because that's not distracting at all. We'll roll with that. All right, so let's talk about this game. Even though my mouth isn't moving, we can still talk about everything we saw against the Magic last night, Doug. It was brutal immediately. I mean, right away. Just a terrible basketball game. Magic straight up punked us, and not in the way of them just killing us on the scoreboard. No, they had behind-the-back passes to the corner for threes. They had excellent layup packages. They were flying all over the court. And, yeah, that's how you get out to, a 67-32 lead already before you even go to the locker room? Yeah. Pretty terrible last night, Doug, and you and I were, I guess, tweeting back and forth. I said I wanted to eject myself into the sun because we had another ejection. Bertans gets ejected right after Brandon Miller does against Philly, and so I said I would choose to eject myself from this game straight into the sun. And you said something about how you were vomiting.
Certainly the first half. This game was. This was a game of two halves.
Yeah.
Because I think if you woke up this morning and didn't watch the game, or decided to quit after the first half, by the way, I would forgive you for that. But you would wake up this morning and go, wait, they lost by 20 to a team that's working on getting into the 4th seed of these Eastern Conference playoffs and has some inherent advantages that we've talked about, in terms of size and defense that really perfectly counteract some of the issues that the Hornets have right now. So a 20-point loss to the Magic, you go, okay, that's fine. And you don't understand that, yes, they only scored 32 points in the first half. But I will say to that, too, they've done worse than that. They've scored under 30 twice this season already, so 32 was actually a little bit of an improvement in that area. But that only comes after Micic drilled 2 triples to end the half. The Magic shot 65% in the first half and outscored the Hornets 40-9. 40-9.
I'm shaking
in the
my
second
head, by
quarter.
the way. You can't see it, but I'm shaking my head.
40. I just want to say that our solution really shows off my production skills. I just want to say it's a huge production quality. A lot goes into this, and this solution really shines through in that.
Thank you, Doug.
40-9 in the second quarter before Micic hit those 2 triples. Truly incredible turnovers, trying to dribble right into the teeth of a good Orlando defense. And we said it in our preview. Can't turn the ball over. They did that. The offensive energy was nothing. They broke the lineup. Typically, Grant Williams will come in the game and provide that spark. He did in the second half, but in the first half, the offensive energy actually went down when they broke the lineup. Nobody could hit shots, a lot of mid-range shots, not a ton of threes, misses at the rim, not getting fouled. It was awful. Look, Orlando is a team that's going to the playoffs, and they look like it. The Hornets are not, and they look like it. Orlando defends top to bottom. Player one, their best player, Banchero, all the way down to their 10th, 11th guy. They all defend like banshees, and that's why they're going to the playoffs. And the moment that the Hornets get personnel and can communicate to personnel and show them the tape of the Magic and say, hey, this is how a team that doesn't have 2 or 3 all-stars on it, this is how they get to the playoffs. If you do this, you will get to the playoffs. Until that happens, the Hornets will be stuck where they are.
If you do this, then you are allowed to play 15 players and have every single one of them score except for 2. If you do this, Goga Batadze and Chuma Okeke, those are the only guys that didn't score. But yes, Caleb Houston got on the scoreboard. Anthony Black, of course, did, who hit a couple of threes in the first game. Cole Anthony went nuts in the first half. He was awesome in this game. 9 of 12 from the field, 3 of 5 from three-point range as well. And he was all over the place. Isaac defending at a high level again, and he hit a 3 in that first half also. Yeah, man, just so much balance from Orlando, and we talked about some of the stuff to look out for heading into this game, and they bother the Hornets. This is not a team where, okay, let's say Charlotte has a floor of competing defensively and holding you to something respectable defensively, right? Okay, that works for the teams that don't play defense, that you might have a shot, but like against Orlando, who also just got going offensively too, by the way, especially in the first, it's not going to work against a team that also plays defense really well. And the Hornets offense is just so putrid anyway. Like, it's been so bad for a while now, and it continues to be
in the
bad
first
at the end of
half.
the season.
I just love that these are amazing numbers. In the first half, 0 bench points, 0 second chance points, 0 fast break points. Like, I don't know if I could go back and easily find a game where you end a half with 0, 0, 0 in those categories. It was truly amazing. And yet in the second half, they do get it together. I mean, I think they might have saved Clifford's job because I don't know. Jeff Peterson was there in attendance. Gabe Plotkin was there watching this disaster of a first half, but they outscored the Magic 33-24 in the third quarter. And then they make some moves in the fourth quarter. It was obviously over, and Clifford decided to end it with 3 days rest coming up, decided to end it early, got the white flag unit in there with about 6 minutes to go. And then Bertans gets ejected in that second quarter, too. I mean, we could talk about that. Second straight game, the Hornets have an ejection with a guy throwing a karate move, elbow.
There's the bad buzz. It's the bad buzz, not the bad boys. It's a different era now. Bertans, Brandon Miller.
They're bad. They're certainly bad. They put the bad in bad boys for sure.
What are we doing?
They're pathetic. And I don't even, Walker, I don't even use the word pathetic in like a mean way. They're just, in that first half, they were pathetic. And I think almost, to me as a fan, I'll speak from the fan perspective. I'll take my press hat off for a second and speak from the fan perspective. The second half of the game actually makes the first half worse, right? Because Detroit, if you look at Detroit, they'll put a whole game like that together. And you go, well, yeah, it's Detroit. I mean, they're full of awful players, and they've got a lot of issues. The Hornets have an issue, which is injuries. Mm-hmm. But the second half proves that they know how to play and sometimes just choose not to do that.
That's right.
In the first half. It's not even like they let it go, because that would be at least a little bit more understandable. Hey, we tried really hard at the beginning, but we just cannot keep up with this Magic team. No, they just decided off of a couple of days rest to come into that game and say, we just don't have it tonight. We're just not going to. I'll give you a perfect play. Second quarter, 6 minutes to go. Bertans gets a steal, passes it to Pokusevski, who slow walks it up the court. Bridges gets frustrated that the ball doesn't find him quickly in transition, throws up his hands. Eventually, the ball goes around back to him in the corner, and then he drives it and turns it over for an easy Magic 2. Mm-hmm. Just like mind-numbing bad play. by everyone.
Yeah, last thing for me on the game before we move on. I just want to say, so when we use cleaning the glass a lot, it's just a good advanced metric site that gets rid of garbage time that you look at for game write-ups, player stats, whatever. Looking at the shooting frequency chart between both of these teams, Doug, I don't know if this is something you noticed too. In every category, I'm not exaggerating, every single category, it's the exact opposite of the Hornets are put up some of the worst numbers in the league in that category in this game, and the Magic put up some of the best numbers in the league in that category with shooting frequency, right? Which is basically, where are you getting your shots? Well, Charlotte was getting the 23% of their shots at the rim. That's one of the worst marks in the league all season. Orlando, 42% of their shots. That's among the best marks all season. It's the same thing for short mid, long mid, all mid. The Hornets, all they did was shoot long twos. That's all they did in this game. They were posting up a lot, and like you look at the no corner threes went in this one. Not a ton of 3-point attempts. So it's just the shot selection based off some of the skill sets of this team anyway, right? Like Brandon Miller is going to affect this number when you're talking about mid-range jumpers and all that, and whatever. But the team itself, with Orlando driving you to shoot those shots. So part of it is the Hornets already like taking them, and Orlando drives their opponent to take those types of shots. It was a perfect storm, especially if you're missing. Like, if you don't have them going in, then it's a perfect storm of whatever that was in the first half. And I'm smiling on YouTube. I'm not smiling behind the picture.
The pull-up mid-range two is exactly what Orlando wants you to do, meaning it is the easiest shot for an offense to take. The easiest shot for an offense to take is the shot that the defense wants you to take. And so to get the hard shot requires ball and man movement constantly. Against a good defense, you have to constantly be moving. It requires an energy and a focus, and not, I'm going to one pass, drive the ball, try to put my head down and attack this defense. It's not going to work against Orlando. It will work against certain teams. They knew going in it was not going to work, and yet they did it because it's very easy to say, all right, I'm just going to put my head down and drive and not move the basketball. It's just easier that way. It's also, if you're not making the other team miss with good defense, then you can't get easy buckets at the rim in transition. You can't push the pace. You can't do the things that would make that shot profile look a lot different.
And that's what led to a terrible first half. Let's move on. Couple more segments to go with Fake Face Walker Mail on Locked On Hornets. Coming up next, we'll talk about maybe a Rookie of the Month case for not Brandon Miller, but drumroll, Doug, hit the graphic.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Maybe Vasa Micic. Could Vasa Micic win Rookie of the Month? Could the Hornets have two Rookie of the Month winners on the roster? We'll get to that in just a moment. All right, we're going to try to go without the picture this time. Maybe Doug has to go to it. Who knows? Stay tuned during this entire read because I want to tell you all about eBay Motors. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and even more than that. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. More Locked On Hornets ahead. All right, Doug, you had a couple of other things to say real quickly before we get into a Rookie of the Month case.
I do have to hand out some kudos because, again, they did make a second half comeback. A lot of that was Miles Bridges, who opened the second half with 4 field goals. They were all really tough shots. They all went in. And look, if they go in, you can't do a lot of complaining. I thought Pokashevsky learned his lesson from the first half. He did push the ball a little bit more when he got it in transition. He caught Miles for a reverse layup. Later on in the half, both Miles and Brandon had double-digit scoring outputs in that third quarter to help make this thing respectable. And Miles Bridges had that sky-high yam on Caleb Houston. I scoffed a little bit when you said Caleb Houston got on the board. I was like, yeah, he got on the board a couple of times when Miles Bridges put it on top of his head. And then we had an Amari Bailey sighting, and I thought he had really good defensive positioning, great steal and save at the 109 mark in the fourth quarter. That broke up a transition opportunity. He drove and hit the final shot of the game. We just haven't seen a lot of Amari Bailey. He's been stuck in Greensboro. Thought it was a nice effort for the Rook. Hope we see more of him in the future. And then final thing is a question for you. On the irony scale, 1 to 10, how ironic is it that we get this result after you and I do an entire episode about whether or not we should trade LaMelo Ball, right?
Yeah, trading LaMelo would make this even worse, or at least make this problem consistent and with no hope to fix it at any point. And yes, that would be the thing. Right.
How could you look at this result? How could you look at this team and say it needs less talent? I need less talent on this team.
No, that's right. Yeah, let's go ahead and give up on the guy that got an all-star appearance his second year in the league and was rookie of the month, speaking of, like, every single month that he was healthy his rookie year. So speaking of that award, you said it wasn't all bad. Doug, Micic was actually good in this game. Talk about the shot making for him. I mean, he was very good, going 8 of 10 from the field, and then he even hit 2 of his 3 3-pointers that he took. Not a whole lot of getting others involved, but a lot of missed shots too. 20 points for Micic, just 1 point shy of the actual scoring leader for the team in Brandon Miller. But Brandon Miller got 1 more point on 10 more shots. So not exactly the best night for Brandon Miller. And it's been kind of, leaning that way a little bit this month after 2 well-deserved Rookie of the Month awards in the Eastern Conference. And so if we look at what Brandon has been posting this season, in 9 games played, I don't know if you have like a couple of games at the back end of February that are included in this of the month award, but I'm just starting from March 3rd, where he played against Toronto and on. So 9 games for Brandon Miller in the month of March. He's averaging 17.6 points per game, 5.4 rebounds, 2.7 assists. He's doing so on 41.5% shooting from the field.
Wow.
33.8% from deep, 68.4% from the charity stripe. I didn't actually realize the free throw percentage was down on more than 2 attempts per game, which is actually like something a little bit more for him because he will have not very many free throw games. So the efficiency, it's especially in some areas, it's fallen off a cliff. But again, 9 games, whatever, it doesn't have anything to do with his future. That's what Brandon Miller is doing in the month of March. The other rookie, one of the other rookies that the Hornets acquired post-trade deadline is Vasa Micic. And he's had 10 games played, 9 games started in this month. He's averaging 16 points per game, 2.4 rebounds, 5.3 assists on 52.2% shooting, 36.8% shooting on 3.8 threes from deep, 89.7% shooting from the charity stripe
Vasa!
on 2.9 attempts. So I'll stat you to death. All those stats are telling you that Micic, Doug, if you were to go by just the good old basketball reference page, Micic is the rookie of the month in the Eastern Conference. And at least I've looked at some of the other rookies like Jaime Jaquez, who is a frequent contender up there with Brandon Miller. I didn't look at Asar Thompson or maybe some of the other rookies, but I know you looked at a filter on NBA.com, and it had Micic as the leading scorer for this month with some of the better efficiency and whatnot. So he might do it. If he continues this, then he's going to have the case, and which is going to be remarkable. I just think it's hilarious.
Yeah, he's going to be the oldest looking Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month in history. No, I mean, it's great. He has really increased his scoring output, and it's come at, and I don't know if it's come at the detriment of his passing ability, because his assists are down over the past couple of games. I don't know how much of that is Trey Mann's return, because Mann has been, it seems like they're filtering more of scoring opportunities to Vasa and more asking Trey Mann to go out and move the basketball a little bit. So I don't know what that balance is. But certainly you'd like to see him work on his scoring for the rest of the season, because I don't think there's any question this guy has crazy court vision, ability to pass. I don't know that there's any more working on that part of his game. I think where he's struggling is to figure out how to score over good, defenses. Mm-hmm. And so the more he works on that, the better. But yeah, I mean, it's been impressive. And the Hornets would be setting some bad historical records without Micic's play right now, because he's doing it in games where Miles Bridges and Brandon Miller aren't necessarily playing up to the level of play that we've been used to seeing from them this season.
Yeah, right. And with Micic and Mann, like that seems to be one of the more interesting storylines going towards the end of the season, just how they'll finish up and then where we can try to apply that towards next year and beyond. And the fact that Micic, might have some hardware because of his performance and what he's been doing the last 9 games or so. You got a couple more weeks, not even a couple more, just basically a week and a half more long of I can't even talk. You don't have very much longer before you really finish this out and bring home some hardware. So, yeah, we'll see about Micic, man. But he and Mann are doing a nice job, and they're fun players to watch what they've been doing. So you're smiling because that was a struggle, and I'm smiling through it all on YouTube.
Well, you are smiling. I haven't noticed. I didn't notice it was a struggle. You look great. I mean, the eyebrows are, you're keeping those tight. A little shorter haircut. I like it. Collar on the shirt. Very nice.
People say stuff about my eyebrows consistently. On YouTube, they just kind of have a mind of their own. In case you're watching this time, like, well, they're very expressive. You got one raising up. Both of them raise up when I'm real excited about something. Yeah, people make comments about the bushy, active eyebrows that I have.
But no, I wasn't focused on you. Of course, I was focused on me and Micic in particular. And I've been thinking too that Micic is playing well, yes, and he's definitely taken a more active role on the team. And I will say that I've seen a little bit of frustration between him and some other players on both ends of the floor. I've seen him sort of get into an on-court argument with Bridges. And in last night's game, I saw him and Grant. They turned it over in the second quarter on the simplest. Again, this first half, I cannot express to you how mind-numbing it was to watch the Hornets. It was. I'm sure it was as mind-numbing as watching UVA play last night.
I did both. I chose double torture last night.
Good Lord. Just the level of poor execution basketball-wise. It was, Naismith rolling in his grave. So it was a simple DHO play. They turn it over, and Micic and Grant, and it leads to, of course, every mistake that you make leads to an easy two-pointer for the Magic on the other end. And so they're bringing the ball back up the court, and him and Grant are arguing with each other. And it's I don't know if it's I don't know how good. I mean, his English seems fine. I don't know if there's a communication breakdown or something, but he's been getting into it with a couple of the players. And I only note it, Walker, because we just don't see it that often with the Hornets. The Hornets are not a team that I'm oh yeah, they're always like the Miami Heat. They're always getting into it with each other on the bench or on the court. That's not this team. It hasn't been traditionally. And so when you see it, you go, okay, there's something spicy going on there. Well, so we'll have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, we love it with Brandon Miller. Do we like it with our other rookie? Yeah,
I like it in general because I always say this about teamwork. If you're not there's obviously a level where it can go too far, but if you're not doing a little bit of that, then you're not getting better. If you know what I'm saying? If you're not dusting it up a little bit with your teammates over something, it means that there is a level of everybody has decided the well is poison. This is not worth even fighting over anymore. And that's when you make a change at head coach. That's when that's what the Hornets were pre-trade deadline. That's when you say, all right, off with the current bench and in with 4 or 5 new players, because they didn't even look like they cared anymore. And so, yeah, I love to see that with anyone.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Coming up, the NBA admitted its scoring is down. It's definitely down for the Hornets, but officiating could have something to do with it, and I think it also might have something to do with a particular Hornet and their struggles this season. That's all ahead on the Locked On Hornets podcast. This episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue, otherwise known as the 2024 Nissan Rogue, is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class-exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right in to the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. That's high definition. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Or hey, you could try the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. It has room for up to 8 and expansive cargo capacity. By the way, 8, that's the rotation of the Charlotte Hornets right now. They're running an 8-man rotation. You can get all 8 of them in there. Advanced available 4x4 capabilities as well, with 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds of towing when adventure calls. The Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. That's nissanusa.com. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Just me for the final segment of the Locked On Hornets podcast. But you know what? I'm feeling a little bit lonely. Walker, the tech issues became too much to overcome, so he had to scoot off. But luckily, I have his picture right here. I could just, he could just keep me company. All right, Walker, you're going to stay right there, and you're going to listen to everything I have to say, and you can't interrupt me once. I love this. This is beautiful. I should do this every solo show. Okay. So, my final thing here on the Locked On Hornets podcast is a little bit of news in the NBA. This all started with Tom Habistro on his Substack. He essentially did some research and saw that, hey, scoring is down across the league since the end of January, like dramatically, enough where you look at a graph and go, okay, this is something. And then he looked at how many fouls were being called since the end of January 31st. And he said, hey, these graphs are kind of lining up in a way that is statistically relevant, so there's something here. Some other folks did some more research, and people started to make a little bit of a bigger deal about this. Coaches, when asked about it, were certainly, they were careful, like Steve Clifford was careful after the end of the game last night. He was very explicit in how he was like, I'm not going to cost myself money talking about that Bertans ejection, okay? I'm not going to do it. So they're very careful talking about officiating, but they certainly have made vague notions about the game looks different right now than it did, in January, in December, November, October when we began the season. Less foul calls, less, especially when offensive players were looking for foul calls, particularly there's been more plays where they've just let the play happen, play on. And so the NBA finally decided, okay, we've got to say something about this. So they sent Joe Dumars and Monty McCutcheon onto Zach Lowe's podcast, and they admitted it. They said, look, scoring is down, and officiating has something to do with it. And then after that, both Adrian Wojnarowski for ESPN and Mark Stein reported that there was a memo sent to the league that said, hey, we've given the officials some notice here in the middle of the season that we want them to de-emphasize the fouls where offensive players are hunting for fouls. They're initiating contact. We're making a point of emphasis, which typically happens at the beginning of a season. We're making a point of emphasis in the middle of the season, and it has dramatically impacted scoring. And so they've admitted it. And we can all see it. You could see, honestly, if you watched the game last night against Orlando, there were a lot of plays where both the Hornets and the Magic were obviously looking for fouls, driving and trying to create contact, particularly in transition, where the officials were like, nope, not calling that. And it's led to a lot of frustration amongst players. And honestly, I feel for the players. I understand the frustration because it would be one thing if they made this point of emphasis at before this season started. Because then you have time as a veteran player or even as a young player to say, okay, I understand how you're going to call it, and we've got some preseason games. We can run this in training camp, so we can have the officials who are working the training camps call it like that, and we can make adjustments to our game. We can decide, okay, the thing that I used to do, I can't do that anymore, and also I can try this other thing. Because that's how the NBA player, they play over and over and over again, and they've been doing so for years and years and years. They are creatures of habit. But once you take something away from them, the cool thing about professional, really any professional that is doing something over and over again, is they can say, okay, now I can make an adjustment. Now I can find some other wrinkle, or I can do some other thing. But they have to have some notice. It's so difficult to do that in the middle of a season when you are playing every other night. You barely have any practice time anymore in the NBA because of the way the schedule works. And so that's what's leading to all this frustration. It's what's leading to scoring being down. And so I get where you would be frustrated as a player, and now you've got to wait until next season to make some more of those adjustments. I also get it from the NBA's perspective. They are tired of seeing what the game has become, which is essentially a game of how often can we get to the free throw line and how often can we take threes. That's all the game has become now, because that's what the math tells you. The math tells you that the most efficient shot in the NBA right now is at the free throw line, because you're at least getting 1 point and the clock stops, and obviously three-pointers. And so the NBA felt like they needed to make a change. I would question the timing of it. But they're up against the clock. Again, they've been tinkering with the product ever since they got into these TV negotiations. But they've seen the criticisms of the way the game looks right now. And they are, probably from their perspective, they're like, hey, maybe this makes an impact, but we've got to do it now. It reminds me of, this is going to be a funny and niche reference that I don't know that a lot of people are going to get, but there was a sitcom in the 1990s called Dinosaurs. And it was essentially The Simpsons, but what if dinosaurs who could walk and talk like human beings, and everybody was in costumes. It was very 90s. If you haven't seen it, I really encourage you to go take a look at it. It was an amazing show. Okay, all that to say that the series, I hate to spoil it, but the dinosaurs, they all die. But at the series finale was essentially that the main character did some geoengineering tinkering as part of his company, and that the little change affected one thing, and then they had to fix that, and that broke something else, and they had to fix that, and on and on and on and on, and it snowballed and dominoed, and the meme where the little domino becomes the huge domino, and it led to the extinction of the dinosaurs. Okay, very sad ending, by the way, for a sitcom. One of the saddest, darkest endings in sitcom history. Go look it up. All that to say, that this is what this feels like, where the NBA said, all right, we're going to tinker with something, and they didn't really understand the full implications. They didn't understand how that memo that they sent to officials was going to, the point of emphasis, was going to dramatically reduce scoring. They should have, because they should have understood their game and what it had become and how much teams were relying on hunting fouls, drawing fouls, getting the officials to blow their whistle, and how much that impacted scoring. Okay, let's go to the local angle to end the show. Miles Bridges, struggling right now a little bit offensively. The numbers look good, right? I mean, 20-point games, you look across his game log and you go, what's the problem? The problem is he's not an efficient player. The problem is his shot profile is dramatically different than it has been his entire career. His entire career has been mostly at the rim and slowly building more at the three-point line, but not a lot in the mid-range until this season. I mean, if you look at the cleaning the glass numbers, I think I haven't pulled them up. Yeah, I haven't pulled up here. So in terms of frequency, his shot profile, 30% of his shots are coming from the mid-range. That's 75th percentile, meaning way above average amongst forwards in the league. You look at his last season in the league, 21-22, 19%. 16% before that. His sophomore season in the league, 23%. His rookie season in the league, 16%. And it's because he played either dramatically more at the rim, or in that 2021 season, he took a bleep ton of threes and didn't do much at the rim or at mid-range. It was just all three-pointers 2021. And that was when, the Hornets were a huge offensive scoring machine, I should note. So why is he going more to the mid-range? I think when he first came back in to off that 10-game suspension, he was head down, I'm going to the rim. And he wasn't getting a lot of calls then, but that's when the officials were still calling a lot of plays, and he was missing a lot at the rim. And I think it got into his head. And then as we have progressed through this and the officials have called even less fouls, what do you think, Walker? You think I'm right about this? As they've called less fouls, I think he's totally abandoned, all right, I'm going to put my head down, go to the rim, I'm going to move the basketball, I'm going to be open for three. Part of this, it's always multifaceted, it's not one thing, but I think the change in officiating has even more so altered the way that Miles Bridges attacks offensively. And so, again, I feel for Miles. I feel for all the players that have probably had to adjust their games on the fly. And we'll see if he can figure that out as we approach next season. And will he figure it out with the Hornets? Will the Hornets say, okay, we looked at the shot profile. It is way different, and you haven't been as efficient of a scorer, but there have been a lot of factors, and so we're going to take a chance on you. And from the team's perspective, they would look at it and go, hopefully at a discount. But other teams could say that too and say, actually, no, not at a discount. We're going to pay this guy a lot more. So a lot of decisions have to be made. Just wanted to point out that sort of NBA storyline and how it has affected all players, and my suspicion that it is affecting Miles Bridges as well. Okay, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Hornets. Thanks to Walker. Thanks to you for supporting this show. If you watch on YouTube, please go download the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get audio podcasts. Even if you don't plan to listen there, it helps the show. And if you're listening, reverse. Go to YouTube, subscribe, hit the like button on a video while you're there. That will help the show as well. All right. Go Hornets, go America. Let's swarm Charlotte. We'll see you all tomorrow with David Walker talking a little bit of tournament, some guys to watch. That'll be fun. See you then.